Well, hello, this is Laura Brandenburg from Bridging the Gap, and today we're going to talk about a really common challenge that business analysts face, and that's what you do when you've created your business analysis plan with a forecasted date for finishing the requirements, but your project manager kind of ignores it and sets a different deadline for you anyway. Well, this happens more often than we would think as business analysts because project managers also face aggressive deadlines, but also because we often tend to just want more time as BAs, right? And so we can forecast dates that really aren't supported by the project manager or the business. So what do? Let's talk about it and dive right in. So this tip is actually from lesson 4 of the business analysis, the BA Essentials Masterclass. And the tip is, there's a few pieces to this. So first, you want to make sure that your deadline is practical and realistic. So we have a tendency, as I was mentioning as BAs, to kind of get a little bit perfectionist about our thoughts about what's going to happen. We can be a little bit of worst case scenario thinking, and we can see all the things that could happen in our projects to go wrong, like stakeholders not turning up to our meetings or new requirements surfacing late in the process. And so we tend to bake all of those things that could go wrong and the time it takes to be perfect into that original deadline that we set for ourselves. Well, does your project manager want the worst case scenario or the best case scenario? Often they're probably looking for the best case scenario. So that date that they gave you might have kind of been thinking more best case rather than worst case. And then they want to handle those things that could go wrong as assumptions or risks or constraints on the project that are managed separately from the timeline. So really understand from your PM, do they want the best case or the worst case? And then encourage yourself to think about that best case, right? And that's how you get a little bit more realistic and practical about what is it really, really going to take to do the requirements and what's the best that you could put forward in terms of a deadline. Now, the other thing you can do is give them 2 dates. So you could give them your best case date and your worst case date if all the things that you're probably expecting go wrong. You're going to be right about some of those. So you want to maybe give them the second date if some of those things do go wrong. What would the date be? And that can allow you to manage expectations as you go through and actually implement the project. Now, often just this kind of simple tweak in how we talk about deadlines and how we put our deadlines together can solve the issue. That might bring your project manager's deadline more in alignment with your deadline, and that might get you to close enough to move forward. But it doesn't always work out that way, right? You might really truly be doing a very practical best case scenario for your timeline, and your project manager might still say, nope, sorry, I need it 2 weeks earlier or 2 months earlier, or some significant time earlier that just is truly causing you to freak out. So what do you do then? Well, then you could just get started and be like, well, it's not going to work, and they'll see like when we get to that deadline that I'm still working on the requirements. But another option would be to offer a new plan. This time you want to cut scope from your business analysis effort of the plan, or you could make changes to the plan that introduce additional risk to the project. So some of the things that you might consider when you cut scope or introduce risk is not meeting with a group of stakeholders, or instead of meeting with multiple stakeholders from, say, every department, you just pick one that's a subject matter expert and you move through the requirements really quickly without giving them necessarily time to collaborate with their team. So you're getting a more isolated set of input on the requirements that would allow you to move more quickly. You might miss requirements when you do that. It's not perfect, right? But it could be a realistic way to try to achieve that timeline. You might eliminate certain requirements deliverables from your plan. So say you were planning to do business processes, use cases, wireframes, and a data model, all courses that we teach, all really important techniques that have their time and place in business analysis. Maybe it would be possible, though not ideal, to skip the business process step and jump right into the use cases, which is going to give the development team what they need. Then maybe you can circle back around later and do that business process step for the business team. So just another idea. Essentially, you want to offer a solution to achieving that deadline, achieving that date, and then be really clear about the risks and the assumptions that you're making, so that when those things do surface and you do have to slip on that timeline a little bit, it's because one of those things happened and you can communicate that and be managing expectations around that. So those are just some ideas for what do you do when your project manager just hands you a deadline that you feel doesn't work. You really want to make sure your deadline is realistic and practical and eliminate that perfectionism and see if you can meet them halfway. And then, educate them about the business analysis process as you go. So again, this is Laura Brandenburg at Bridging the Gap. We are a leading provider of virtual training, helping you start your business analyst career. And today's tip was from our BA Essentials Masterclass. Leave a comment below and let me know what you think and how you will apply this in your career as a business analyst. Thanks so much. Bye-bye.